All right, well, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday, week before Thanksgiving. This is our second tax affinity meeting of the year. So we'll start with introductions. My name's Eric Jackson. I'm the chair with Charles County, and I'll let my co-chair Dan go ahead and introduce himself.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Dan Lewis, Frederick County.
Okay, so hopefully, everything is going well with everyone. We have pretty full agenda today. Of course, if there's anything anyone wants to go over, please feel free to bring it up and we can discuss. Seems like the penny shortage is starting to become a hot topic, as with the email that went out yesterday evening with Dorothy from Baltimore City, I believe. And some of you guys have responded to that. So I do thank you guys for that. We do have Bob Yeager that's going to be on today. We do have about a half hour before, well, actually about 20 minutes before we have Abby Moynihan come on about Simplifile. And hopefully you guys were able to bring in some of your D specialists as well about this. And so for the moment, I'm going to go ahead and let Bob speak and with some of the topics that he wants to discuss, and maybe that'll take us into our 11 o'clock with Abby. So, good morning, Bob. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning, Eric. Thanks. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Thanks, everybody. Bob Yeager, Director of the Department of Assessments and Taxation. I just have a few things I wanted to share with you today. First thing, I wanted to follow up on our discussion about heirs to properties that have access to certain benefits in the tax sale process. We did, I think, as just to confirm, we did have our first applicant for an heir to be enrolled in the homeowner protection program. And what they were able to provide us to show that they were the heir was a signed copy of a will, as well as a letter from a letter that lists them as I guess it's a list of interested persons letter that's been approved by the Register of Wills. So in our situation, we did use that as determining that was sufficient for the first person to be enrolled. One of the things that has come up that we're meeting again actually on today is that in this instance, the property was listed as owner occupied, so it had an H code in the real property database. This was argued to be a factor that worked in their favor to be eligible for this, but I think that going forward, it may or may not be relevant because it's listed as owner occupied, but it is titled still in the deceased person's name. So I think in most of these situations, when someone identifies themselves as an heir, the property will likely be listed as non-owner occupied because when someone dies, they may lose that owner occupied status right away. That's one of the triggers where we remove the homestead status and remove that. So we're working through what that process looks like. This one, because it did have owner occupied status, we were able to give them the loan, get the bill paid, put them on the payment plan. So that's been successful, but we are working through, we're open to other ways that people can document whether they are an heir to the property. I think we've also talked about if there are multiple heirs to the property, that's something we're going to take into consideration. If there's a list of people interested on the property, as long as the person who's applying, we can verify in the motor vehicles records that they are that is their residence, that's their address, then we will move forward with enrolling them in the program. We're just cautiously going into this because it is something where the statute that opens up the door to heirs doesn't have a lot of details. It doesn't really explain how that eligibility would be determined. So we're trying to just make that balance between opening the door for heirs to the properties while at the same time not looking to see how we can prevent instances of fraud as much as possible. So I'll keep you posted on that as we go through. Any questions about that ongoing heir discussion?
So, hey Bob, so with that, at some point, are they going to be required to have the property, will have a deed done for the property changed to their name?
There's nothing in the statute that says you can you can qualify as an heir the first year, but then you have to transfer that title into your name or
Right.
transfer the deed into your name. So that was a question we had right away, and it's not clear. We don't have that requirement. Um, and one of the issues that I think that comes out of this is someone could just, say they continue to just reapply for the homeowner's property tax credit every year as an heir to the property. Um, the deed will never be in their name if they don't take some sort of action. We would just confirm through the MBA records that that is their address that they have where they're living. But it does raise the question of at what point does someone need to be the actual owner of the property in order to uh, qualify for these benefits? One of the main issues, and this is something we had during the pandemic, was that we can't for the HPP program, if someone doesn't make a payment to us, we have to record a lien against the property. We can't record a lien um, against in the name of a person for a property that's not titled in their name.
Right.
So that's an issue that we're uh, reaching out to different groups, to different stakeholders, to find out what's the best way to comply with this law, and then comply with the somewhat conflicting requirement that we have to record a lien in the land records. So I'll definitely keep you posted about how that's going to play out. I think what happened with what we've heard, advocates have shared with us that the intention was to make this similar to the HAF grant, that federal grant that was administered by the State Department of Housing and Community Development, where they were able to give grants to homeowners for various things that put them at risk of losing their home, including delinquent property taxes or being in the tax sale process. And what they did was, if someone was an heir to a property, they would accept a letter that said it was the likelihood of transfer of the property into their name, and that was sufficient. The difference there is it was a grant. They didn't have to pay us back, so they didn't have to pay the state back. So once they paid it, the relationship was over. So they weren't so concerned about that. With the HPP program in particular, we have this 3-year relationship with the enrollee where we're receiving payments from them. We have to record a lien against the property. We're helping them connect with different resources. Always one of the resources the Ombudsman's office connects property owners to, if there's any sort of title issue, is we connect them to legal resources that would allow them to transfer title, tangled title, resolve all those issues that would open up the door for benefits. The advantage now is that they would be able to qualify for those benefits while we go through that process. So our goal will always be to try to connect them with those resources to get the title transferred into their name. But under the statute, there's no requirement that they do that. And I think you could probably argue that because part of our HPP policy is they get a loan, they have to sign understanding that they have to pay us back. But we also create an enrollment agreement. So they actually have to sign off that based on our evaluation of their circumstances, they need to apply for the homeowner's tax credit each March. They have to go to a budget counselor to talk about how to afford making these payments. They may have to go, if there's a title issue, we may require them to go to legal resources to get their title issues resolved. And those all not complying with any of those put someone at risk of being their enrollment being canceled. The snag with it is when we cancel enrollment, that's when we're going to record a lien against the property that's already been signed, and so that does remove that tool that we have available. So, like I say, it's a lot of details we're working out, but so far so good.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other thing I just wanted to mention today was I've been invited to several conversations over the past couple of months to groups, including the Maryland Department of Agriculture, to revisit expanding the definition of or the list of approved agricultural activities that would allow a property owner to access the ag rate for their assessment. As you probably know, in statute, it defines very broadly 3 specific circumstances of how land can qualify for the ag rate. The ag rate is up to $500 an acre. If you have a lower rate where you previously got a lower rate before when the rate was raised to 500, that lower rate is grandfathered in, so the maximum is right now is $500 per acre. That statute is expanded or detailed in COMAR in our regulations. COMAR, and here I'll give you the number, it's 18.02.03.03. And this is the list of enumerated approved agricultural activities. So right now it says approved agricultural activities are as follows: raising grains, fruit, herbs, melons, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, tobacco, vegetables, raising poultry, for example, chickens, turkey, or eggs, raising dairy, for example, milking cows, livestock, for example, cattle, sheep, lambs, hogs, pigs, horse boarding, breeding, and training, turf farming, ornamental shrubs, plants, flowers, including aquatic plants, aquaculture, and aquaculture. So, or aquaculture and silviculture. So that is, I think, a more detailed way of looking. It's generally either sort of crops, livestock, or it's one of these plants, ornamental shrubs, sort of turf farming, that sort of thing. So last year there was an effort to expand this definition to include other activities, and the real goal of all this is to what the industry groups have said is that because farming is developing what they define as farming, counties are expanding their zoning to allow for different sort of activities on farm properties. And so what they're trying to do is allow additional pathways for farm-based activities to qualify for that ag rate. So I want to just go through some of the suggestions from you, because this effort was initially pursued through legislation a couple of years ago. It did not pass. And so I think a strategy that the interested parties are pursuing is that SDAT can propose new regulations that would expand that definition of approved agricultural uses, and that would allow them to access that ag rate. What I have said, and I continue to say to this group and any others, is that I don't believe that it's our place to expand the definition of ag. I think that's something that should come from policymakers, from lawmakers, from some sort of agreement between the counties and industry groups. I think that when it comes to incentives for certain industries, and a lot of these industries are sort of like farm-based breweries or farm-based wineries or agritourism activities that would allow farmers to generate income that way. I think that those sort of industry incentives make sense to me to come from the county. You know what I mean? Like whenever we hear any sort of incentive program, I always try to have folks understand that we shouldn't be altering the way we assess properties. Like our SDAT's goal is accuracy. So all we spend all our time doing is trying to get to the accurate number of what's the market value of this property. What's the accurate valuation that reflects recent market activities that we can defend when we go to tax court, when someone appeals their assessment. We can say, this is what we based the assessment on. So it's all about accuracy. The ag rate is one of the rare instances where we artificially lower that rate. It's not an accurate assessment. It's an established sort of incentive assessment. And I think any other incentive should maintain the accuracy of SSTAT's real property assessment. And then the county can decide, hey, for these type of industries, we're going to set a separate tax rate for that. For wineries, if Frederick County wants to encourage wineries to open there, then they could set by county ordinance a separate tax rate specifically for that. They can determine how what qualifies as a winery on a farm-based activity. I've pitched that to the industry groups, the Wineries Association and the Maryland Farm Bureau and the Department of Agriculture and their team. And those, I've tried to offer that as a suggestion, and that they should engage with the counties. The other piece of this is I don't think that it's our place to sort of offer up county revenue to incentivize economic growth on your behalf. They get into these arguments to me as head of SSTAT, about how this is going to stimulate economic growth in Charles County, and it's the farm-based businesses are going to have economic impacts. Maybe there's land that's being better utilized, and there's all these benefits. But I always say this is the pitch you need to make to the counties, either individual counties or to MACO or to different forums where you can engage with them, because I think it's your decision to determine that cost benefit analysis, whether you're going to give how much. And I've said, let's not talk anecdotally, let's talk about numbers. When I would love to facilitate a conversation that involves this group with the members that are pushing for this. And I said, but if we're going to do that, have some specific numbers. How many are we talking about? Is this like, if you want to expand this, say for wineries, how many wineries are you proposing are going to want to open and take advantage of this situation? What's the fiscal impact? What are all those considerations? One of the scenarios that they describe is, so if you have, say, a 20-acre property, it's all being farmed traditionally, and it's got the ag rate. Now they build a structure that's going to be a wine production. Let's say they grow grapes, and then so they take 3 acres of the parcel, they build a facility that's going to produce the wine. There's also going to be a tasting room. There's going to be sort of an entertainment type venue piece of it. Then they're also going to have say an acre for parking. So what happens when they do that currently is the permits that are pulled will flag the assessment team, SSTAT, to come along, and they will evaluate the added value that's come to the property. And then they will also say, for the 3 acres of the building and the acre for parking, that no longer falls into the category of ag use. So we're going to remove that, and we're going to assess it at the value of the land. So you have folks who, and the communication issue, I think, is part of the sensitivity. So you have folks who they had the zoning approved by the county, and then through recent expansion of the zoning and permitting. And so their misunderstanding was that they would retain that ag assessment on the property. And so they get their new tax bill, and they'll often point to saying, well, now my tax bill's gone up by tenfold, whatever it is. But it's really just, it's just they still have the ag use on all the other land. It's just those 4 acres now went from being assessed at $500 an acre, and now they're $15,000 an acre. So this is where they're looking to open the door to say, hey, this winery it's still farming. It's a value added farm-based activity. And so that's why it should still be assessed at an ag rate. And then we say, well, it doesn't fall within our narrow definition of one of these things. It's not growing crops. It's not having livestock. It's not doing these different things. And so that's where they're trying to expand that definition. I know that I've said a lot. I want to take you through the list of some of the additional classifications that have been proposed and just get sort of your reaction to that, because what I've said to them is, let me talk to the counties and see what their reaction is. And then and see where we can keep that conversation going forward. So before I list that, any questions just about the setup?
Look, Bob, this I think has come up in a different varieties over the years. I think of like wedding venues where an ag building like a barn is used for hosting weddings and trying to get the ag exemption on that building and some of the activities, even though it is clearly for a different purpose, that it's generating a different type of revenue for the property owner. And so
Yeah,
this might just be another avenue for them trying to do something similar.
I remember when there was a push to create ag use improvements. It wasn't just about the land. Like there was a desire to say, like, and obviously there are certain buildings that are considered farm structures that are assessed that way. But I know in the past there was a desire to say, well, a big wine production facility should be considered an ag use improvement, but maybe something like a tasting room that has sort of like a restaurant venue and other things like that. Maybe that would fall outside the definition of that. For this, I think they're really just focusing on the land, so far at least. And so that's, yeah, I think I know that it's something that the industry continues to say that as the way farms are used evolve, the 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 benefits of the ag assessment should be extended to those different uses. For example, they'll say that having a dairy farm is not really profitable. The price of milk isn't high enough that it can sustain that type of business. But if they have a facility where the milk is turned into ice cream and they have sort of a dining venue where people can have ice cream and maybe have other things, something like that, then that's somewhere, a way that farms can sustain themselves. But then you're sort of outside the scope of what would qualify for ag use, at least for that commercial space. Okay, so some of the things that they wanted to change in that Comar reg that I sort of cited, where it's the first thing is, what's in there already is horse breeding, or horse boarding, breeding, and training, and they want to add to that and associated recreational equine activities. So, that's a little bit broader of a definition. I think if you have a barn that's used to that has stables and stores hay, that would allow that to have the ag use. But I think when the barn becomes sort of like a showing arena, and there's sort of like an entertainment venue within there, and you have maybe accommodations, and you have a commercial kitchen, and you have maybe other features like that. That's when it maybe would go away from ag use. So I think this is an effort to sort of say it's still sort of related equine activities, so recreational equine activities. The other thing is there's a distinction between silviculture and silviculture. So I'll have to dig into what the difference there is. And then these last 3 or 4 items. So value-added processing of agricultural products, for example, alcohol, ice cream, fiber products, or baked goods made with agricultural ingredients grown on the farm or associated parcels. And sales, promotion, storage, and service of raw or value-added products grown, raised, or processed on the farm or associated parcels. And when they talk about associated parcels, we have, you can have an associated parcel that's related to the main farm that also can qualify for the ag rate. And then let's see, approved agricultural activities does not include any activity that is not ancillary to a working farm or active agricultural operation. So that's a way to sort of prevent some industries from just taking advantage of this because they happen to be on a farm, but it's a business that's not related. Like if you're selling ice cream, but it's not made from dairy products made on the farm or derived from the farm, then this would knock that out of consideration. So I know it's a lot of information. It's hard to just sort of hear a lot of rambling about this, but any thoughts or reactions to that, or any concerns? especially if there's a way where you think, hey, this could work for us. I don't see that as being a big hit and there may be an economic benefit from doing that. Okay, well, and we can, if you have any thoughts after this meeting about this, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email and just let me know if if you have any sense or if you've heard your um, councils or executives, talk about wanting to create an incentive for different farm-based activities, or if you have any sense of what the economic impact or hit that the county might take from expanding this assessment in this way, let me know. I'm the advocates for this are very passionate about it, and I think one of the things that's always missing from the conversation is I'm not sure what the counties have to say about this. So I didn't expect you to tell me right now, but I do want to be able to go back to them and say, here's where our initial conversation went, and you know, either they're on board or they think that there's a way to kind of have some meeting in the middle where there's sort of a common ground that you could reach. Maybe there's room to have a study where counties could have more input into this process. I think it's definitely a conversation to have with Mako and see what they have to say. I know that they were involved in this discussion last year when it was brought up. So I haven't had a chance to talk with Kevin about this, but definitely want to make sure we continue the conversation with everybody involved.
I mean, Bob, this is Diane. I think we need to be careful because the idea behind the ag rate is to assist farmers who might not otherwise be able to keep that farm operating if they didn't have that ag rate. So if we start looking at other venue or allowing other venues, I don't want to see us giving an ag rate to someone who has a really profitable enterprise going on that property. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's sort of like how do you prevent somebody who's got a really successful business,
right,
with whatever they're doing on their farm. A portion of their farm is devoted to a successful farm brewery business, and they have a restaurant and they have all these other things. How do you say, like, okay, well, now that extensive property, maybe it's 10 acres or half the property or something like that. Now they're going to go from 30, 40, depending on what county you're in, $30,000-$40,000 an acre, maybe more, down to $500 an acre. And there's no sort of need-based test, which we don't really get into so much when we're doing these assessments. Right. But yep. I think that's where I always feel like that's where the county could make that determination. Like if the county was able to say, hey, this is a business that we feel like we'd be willing to give them this incentive, maybe for a limited time, for 3 years, to let that business get started or something like that, because we feel like, one delegate had said, oh, Maryland should be thinking about how to replicate Virginia's winery trail that's been super successful, and there are restaurants, there's so much commercial activity that's generated from that. But I said that's a conversation to have with the counties. I said they're the ones who should decide about investing their revenue into to get a profitable return on. But for sure, I totally see that. And like I said, this is the language that's sort of been proposed in this angle where they want SSTAT to expand the definition. So there's nothing in this that, unlike a statute where you could really put in a bunch of other layers, this is just adding different types of businesses. And I'm not sure what it does to a business like, I don't know. And this is where someone from our assessment team might have a better insight in it, but like examples of specific businesses that would qualify under this new definition and do not qualify now. So for sure, that's a good point I can take back.
Yeah, and Bob, I don't think there's going to be a huge revenue impact if you look at an existing farm that is already getting the ag rate, and maybe the business or the farm is changing its use some, because we're already getting limited revenue from that farm. It's when you open up that Pandora's box and allow other farms to be acquired and change over, and or other properties to then change. I think that's where the hit would be in future revenue growth.
Right. So like just a large landowner that's not getting the ag rate now, someone saying, well, now I'm going to grow wine and I'm going to have a winery operation, and now the whole thing's going to be qualified. Whereas before you would have either had to have crops in the field, you had to have a certain number of cattle per acre, that sort of thing in the past. I think
Right.
that's from our perspective, that's another piece of it where operationally, like how do we assess something where it's something more nuanced? Are we going to sit down with the owner and like how are we going to understand what their business is and really dig into what they're doing to say like, okay, well, you haven't crossed the line into just purely commercial. You're still in this new ag category, and now we're going to assess you at the ag rate, and then if that changes in any way, that's something where like, okay, well, now so they've gone from a tasting room to now it's mainly a restaurant, and it's really like they sell the wine that comes from the property, but all the food's brought in, and it's just like a restaurant. So is that anticipated in this definition where what is there a percentage that has to come from the land itself on site, or is it something where so there's just a lot of questions, and I think that's good information to take back, Dan, about the conversion of non-ag properties to ag use. Okay, well, that's all I had. If you guys want to, like I say, if you want to follow up and have a conversation about this, I'm happy to do that. I did get someone had mentioned about how their understanding of one of the bills that I went through last month was that counties are required to create this registry of the air registry. So I want to just kind of take a closer look at that. I haven't had a chance. It just came up this week that someone said, I said, yeah, well, we met with the housing group and they said, have any counties reached out to you about setting up the air registry as stats required to assist in that process? I said, no. I said, I think no one has. And my understanding is that it is enabling legislation that allows counties to create that if they so choose. And it was mentioned, they said, oh no, it's a shall. The counties they're starting in January, they're supposed to be working on having these air registries. So I said, the problem with it is that would be fine, but it's not really clear what that registry is supposed to look like, what's supposed to be included, how they're going to get this air information. So hopefully I can get some more follow up on that as they go back to lawmakers and talk through what they were anticipating by that. I think it was Senator McCray in Baltimore City who had pushed for that provision to be added. So they're going to reach back out to his office to see what specifically he had envisioned for the counties to create. But they did mention that their understanding was that it was a requirement that counties create these air registries. And that's all I have.
Okay. Well, Bob, thank you for the information. You always bring good information to us, good for the group, and something that we definitely can have discussions on. So I definitely appreciate it. And so now we want to go into our next presentation. It's with Simplifile. This is with Abby Moynihan. She's the director of underwriting and post closing with Eagle Title. So, Abby, the floor is yours. Good
Hi,
morning.
everyone. I'm Abby Moynihan. I am an attorney here at Eagle Title. I'm the director of post-closing and underwriting. Eric and I had chatted, and so we were going to give you a quick presentation on what Simplifile looks like from our end as the submitter on behalf of the title company. And then also just go over some of the discrepancies we're seeing with rejections coming from, the Treasury or finance end. So I am going to have Madeline on my team kind of take you through the first part of that. But definitely like we want it to be sort of open and a conversation. So if you have any questions about what we're doing or you need to see anything a little bit more closely, just speak up. Obviously we certainly don't know everything. And so we're definitely want to make sure we're kind of showing how things appear for us and where certain information appears as well. So I will let Madeline take over and share her screen so we can walk you through how it looks.
My name is Madeline Songer. Give me 1 second. Getting the PowerPoint pulled up here. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Madeline, you're a little muffled right now.
Yeah, your sound isn't great. I don't know if you have your headset.
All right, how do we sound now?
It's a little better.
Okay. It'll take a second to connect. There we go. All right, good now?
It's a little better.
It's better.
Yeah, there's just maybe an echo in that room you're in too.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Madeline Songer. Thanks for bearing with our technical difficulties. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So Abby and I, we just introduced ourselves. Nice to meet you all. So just wanted to run through some of our statistics that we run for the month of September with Simplifile and just paying the state of Maryland in general. So as you can see, Eagle Title remitted approximately $6.06 million to various counties and cities in the state of Maryland in connection with recording deeds. So this includes property taxes, transfer taxes, recordation taxes, and based on our market share, this would be approximately $170 million to the state of Maryland just in the month of September from title companies and getting deeds on record. This would be about $2.4 billion for the year. And just to give you guys an idea, about 2/3 of this comes from Simplifile. So we did run the month of September, like I said, $4 million out of $6.06 million coming out of Simplifile. So
Yeah,
then the
so I'm
rest
sure.
is,
Oh, sorry. You
yeah,
all know, right, that you're pretty big debt collectors for the state of Maryland. And we just wanted to kind of give you the information on how much of that you're collecting is coming from title companies. Because we do remit a lot of funds to the state through these various amounts. And again, because so much is reported through Simplifile, a lot of that money is coming through these Simplifile transactions.
moving forward, I'm assuming everybody on this call is familiar with what Simplifile is.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I know we are going to show you guys what it looks like from our side. So first, we're going to start off with just a normal deed and intake. Nothing crazy going on with this one. The one I picked just so happened to be $70,800 worth of fees that were getting paid through Simplifile. Okay, so coming from our end, we have this left-hand column of information that we'll fill in, and it typically gets auto-filled from Qualia.
Yeah, Qualia is our processing platform. So we have there's some integration between Qualia and Simplifile that, we're not necessarily going to be showing you, but in, Simplifile, when you're logged in, and you're uploading documents for submission, this is kind of what it looks like. We have to have the documents sort of prepared in a certain way so they can pull over. But then this sidebar on the left is where, the information is either filled in or auto populated. And then Madeline, if you can go back up to the top of that sidebar. So this red box, we just kind of wanted to bring to your attention. So the links in this box vary based on individual counties. So some counties have county-specific information in some of these links, but some of the information is obviously like links to the state of Maryland, right? So the intake sheet and the WHAR, but then that second blue link for e-recording requirements, some are county specific and some are not. So just as an example, Madeline's going to click on that so you can see what we would see for this one, which I think is Anne Arundel County. So that takes us to this PDF for Anne Arundel County. So it has some information for e-recording, but it's not always immediately available or immediately obvious to the individual counties, like where certain information that they've maybe provided to Simplifile is available. So this is the information that is available from that sidebar for Anne Arundel County when we are submitting a document. And as I said, different counties have different information available. If you want to go back to the submission quickly, Madeline. Just because I want to make sure we have time to get to everything we wanted to talk over. And so, we do have the spacing for the submission. We have to fill out, obviously, the information that's on that sidebar. This is just a standard deed that we're submitting. And we have, there's our WHAR, occupancy affidavit. I know Madeline also just wanted to show you a deed of trust and a power of attorney. Does anyone have any specific questions about the deed before we get into those other documents? Okay, and so you can see when we have a different document type, the red box with the county requirements does change slightly. Again, also somewhat jurisdictionally specific. So it's for Anne Arundel, it's gonna kick us back to the same e-reporting requirements. There may or may not be more information here, based on, county specific requirements. And so then, we fill out the information in this sidebar and then we would submit it. The other thing is I just wanted Madeline to go back just to give you some general information about what Simplifile looks like on our side. So Madeline, if you just want to click on packages, so we go back to the main menu, sorry. So when we log into Simplifile, this is what it looks like. So we have, some information here. But one thing that I wanted to just bring to everyone's attention is there is a link that is two up from the bottom that says counties on this bar. So keep going down right there. So counties, this, and then we can expand Maryland, and it's going to tell us like what document types are acceptable in each county. So instead of maybe a more user-friendly format where this information is available right in that red box that I pointed out within the individual recording, user would have to navigate out of their recording and into this sidebar to get county-specific information about document types. It's not actually in that sidebar. Again, some of it's jurisdictionally specific, but you do have to sort of navigate away to get to this information. The other thing I wanted to show you is also in this sidebar, there's a section called News. So if Madeline clicks on that, this is where my understanding is that if you've provided updates that you want distributed by Simplifile, they kind of all land in this like news area, which I would say most users are not navigating to for any reason at all. So it's a good concept, but I don't think it's necessarily showing up as as maybe obvious to a user. Now, I think there's also an option to like have the same message transmitted by email. And, that makes more sense, but this is where it would be found. And then obviously you have, all the updates from anywhere where you may be e-filing. Virginia uses this a lot. So I just wanted to show everybody kind of where that stuff lands. So any questions about any of that?
Abby, so for
Mhm.
this new section, just
Mhm.
I guess this is for other users of Simplifile. If I guess for a specific, at least say Charles, for instance, if there's something that's going to be a change, like if would it say like Charles County and then say what can it tell you guys to like go to news so you know that there's something upcoming that you guys can be aware of?
I would say that, from your side, probably the better approach is to use the option that allows it to go to all users by email. And
Okay.
then, having it here in news is also useful because if you're a new user that maybe didn't get the email, it would be here. The problem is that it is just not obvious to any user that this is a place to look. So really, to me, I think that what would make information the most accessible to all users is having one of those links in that red box link to your own website, wherever you're posting any of this information, something you can kind of keep live and update with information, because that is where it comes up right on your recording. It's that red box. It's hard to miss. I think it's just about understanding, when Simplifile is asking you for information and where to put it, what is going to be most obvious to the user. And I think, again, anything in that box can link to any website, which can be updated over time. So to me, having like more of a live listing of that information there is probably going to get to the most users. But then you have people that are historically using Simplifile. Maybe they know to look here. It's not the most user-friendly format for information to be apparent. Any other questions on anything I've mentioned? And then I just wanted to go to one other thing. So in this same sidebar, there is something called reports. Sorry. Oh, yep. And then, so this is great. Me as like, a manager, I use this all the time. There's various report types that I can run for my organization across any time period. So this is kind of what I did to try to identify any discrepancies. For the most part, I can tell in Simplifile if it's coming from, Treasury Finance versus the clerk of the court. Some counties have it even more granular, like it'll say it's coming from, property tax. There are certain towns and cities that are able to reject or stamp within Simplifile as well. So it can even be that specific if they have those capabilities. But this also, there's a lot of different reporting items that we are able to pull from Simplifile. So my point there is when your language in your rejection, we get that, it's here, we can access it, we get an email notification, but then I'm also pulling it on a report. And so these reports are great, and they'll give me, the top 5 rejection reasons, which is like, oh, that's awesome. The top 5 rejection reasons are like other, right? Because my understanding is on your end, you have some preset ones, and if it's not any of those, it's other, which is great, but it doesn't make these reports as useful as possible as they could be. So, to the extent that using those preset reasons and then maybe adding some comments might work, that's really helpful to me on like the management end, because then I can see right away, all right, we are always getting, a rejection in this category. Maybe there's some nuances, but maybe I need to make, maybe there's a document correction I need to make further upstream. So just so you kind of know, like why does it matter if I just click other and type it in so I can say it how I want it? I get that. I'm just kind of giving you the context of how that comes into play. All right, so I think unless we need Madeline to do anything else for us, we can have her stop sharing. Is there anything else anyone wants to see specifically in Simplifile?
What about those where you may have towns that require like a lien before the county set? I mean, do you have a lot of towns actually set up to where it also goes from the town to the
Yeah, I can
county and then to
actually
the state?
share, I can share because I can share my report, quickly my screen with my report, just I pulled all of our rejections year to date, like got a couple new people. So, when you see the rejection reasons, don't judge us too harshly. But I was able to pull which towns and independent cities I got specific rejections from. So I'm going to try to share that for you now, if that's helpful, Eric, for what you're
Sure.
asking. Okay. It looks like the city of Frederick is able to specifically review and reject. And then the flip side of that, right, is, you guys all know some of these independent, cities and towns have their own like stamp that needs to go on something. So they are able to add their stamp if it goes through. So it looks like the city of Frederick, the city of Aberdeen, city of Annapolis, town of Chesterfield, and town of Queenstown were all able to have their own sort of independent access in Simplifile, and then their approval would kick it to the next step. And then we would get the rejection if there was one specifically from them. And so it is possible, it seems like, for that to be a step in the Simplifile process.
Would you recommend that we try to get towns involved in more
I
just
mean,
to?
I think so on both sides. Again, we only know it a little bit from your side, but to me, it seems like, a lot of times we still are going to need to order if there's a specific, like City of Annapolis has a specific certificate that we have to order before we can record, right? So we're still going to have to order those things, but if a town that needs to sign off on something could have the access, do their stamp right in Simplifile, move it on to the next step. I mean, it's going to cut back on delays. It's going to cut back on, confusion between departments. So I do think that if that's an option that's available, it's very beneficial. And, Simplifile, from everything I can tell, it is really geared towards your side, right? Like making it really easy and user friendly. I'm sure it is not perfect, but I think it is much more, facilitated towards the county municipal user as opposed to the submitter. And I mean, Simplifile really is great for the most part. Like I've been very happy with their customer service and their tech support when we've needed it. As long as you're okay with not talking to a human, you're getting a phone number ever, they will usually help you. But so I do think, though, to the extent that it is possible to have the towns in there as well when they need to approve or stamp, that really makes sense. I think it can really streamline the process.
Okay.
Any other questions? I think the next thing that I was going to talk about was just some kind of I'm going to say discrepancies or just kind of some questions that I have about things that are not like allowable in Simplifile. And I understand if you don't know the answers, it's just sort of, I'm just kind of curious. Some of the issues or some of the discrepancies I see and this is more recent, when we are listing an exemption code, there are some nuances between how much information needs to be included with the exemption code. So sometimes it's okay to just cite to the specific code section. So say it's like it's sub B2, and then, say removing spouse from title. I don't think those two things go together, but, like kind of generally say it. Some of the other rejections require like a complete recitation of the code section. So I think that may just be maybe like a user preference. But it is, again, any rejection makes more work for all of us. So, we kind of just want to make sure that we're trying to, submit it as accurately as possible each time. And I think the other thing for us is I'm trying to build a process that is as uniform as possible for all jurisdictions. So occasionally I may include more information, we may include more information or more backup documents than are strictly necessary, but it is because we're trying to comply with all the requirements. And to that end, some counties require us to submit the settlement statement, but not all the counties. And then, some will go as far as to also ask us to submit the contract. So, there are some nuances there, and I do see some of those coming across from the finance office, or treasury. So, I think, if we could maybe have some uniformity there. I think sometimes it's like we need settlement statement, contract, or report of sale. Is that a like and between those two? Is it a or between all three? Like sometimes it's just also how it's represented. So, and because there's so many differences, and again, we don't want to submit it with just one to get it rejected because you needed two. So just some clarity and maybe uniformity as to backup documentation would be helpful. So my next one is a question. Why can't we use Simplifile when we need to pay recapture, like homestead credit recapture?
I would say I guess when we figure it out, then it's information that we need to get from the state, and because the state is not on board with Simplifile yet, I think that's probably one of the reasons.
Because we know the amount. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right.
I'm with Harford County. We reject for recaptures. Our system, we can't. It's not a bill that we can apply it to, so it has to go in like a holding account, and we're not set up to facilitate that through Simplifile. So any recapture has to come through paper.
You'd have to literally transfer the money.
Right, correct.
Could we? And I also wonder, is there any way that it's faster to set to like overnight a paper check for the recapture, but still submit the rest of the recording through Simplifile? Or is there some type of waiting period?
We cannot do that because we don't
Okay.
have a way to track it.
Yeah, like how would
if
you
it
match
doesn't
them
come
up?
through, because there's nowhere for it to be applied. It goes to a general account. We
Yeah,
would know if you paid it, and then you submitted it through Simplifile. It's just
yeah.
too much for
Yeah.
us to like track, basically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because it is just there are some where, I think on both sides it would be easier if we could, but that makes sense. If you would have to be transferring the funds and then like how do you track it?
Mhm.
Okay, that's helpful.
I think Harford County is one of the only people that I think that collects homesteads back right now. But do you get a lot from other counties?
We have to do recapture everywhere. that
Right,
where
but I
it's
mean,
applicable.
for homestead,
Yes.
is it just Hartford County or most other counties are also
No,
recapturing?
everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere where it would be applicable.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
Yes.
collecting it.
Are you
Okay.
talking homestead or homeowner tax credit?
Hartford County now collects homestead as well as homeowner tax credit.
Okay, so maybe that's the distinction. I mean, if they have the tax credit, the homeowner tax credit on the property, and you know, it needs to be recouped at the time of settlement, we're collecting it. But I understand what you're saying, what the distinction is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but is your answer the same as to the homeowner credit for why it can't be submitted through Simplifile?
Yes, the answer is the same. It's all tracking
Yeah.
for
Okay.
us. There's no way to know that you paid it in advance. So, or to, to facilitate it going to where it needs to go via Simplifile. So,
Hi, I'm from Worcester County. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just gonna let you know we're the same thing. IDOTs cannot go through Simplifile. Homeowner credits cannot. We do not recapture homesteads. The assessment office does that if they determine that.
Right.
And then the only town we have also tax sale deeds. Sorry, I left that out. And the only towns that are using Simplifile for Worcester County is only Ocean City. That is how it was originally set up. I don't know who would correct that. You cannot have a town hard stamp a deed and then put it through Simplifile. We see that a lot with a lot of title companies. But just to let you know, that is the ones that would not go through Simplifile.
And is there some reason that like not all towns are set up to go through Simplifile?
When it originated, I believe not all the towns were on board. They started with Ocean City. That could possibly be a clerk question. They may be able to help you with that.
Yeah.
We sometimes question that ourselves. It may be for a reason, but since we've been using Simplifile, the only town is Ocean City.
I mean, I know the problem that I've had is that I still have some. Well, we only have two towns, but they're still they're not comfortable with it yet. Why? I'm not sure, but that's been the issue that I've had with them. I'm still trying to sell that to them. That it makes things a lot easier for us for everything to go through. So I'm still working on them to try to get them to come on board with us.
Yeah, and I mean it's tough, right? Like when you literally are trying to get people who are used to the paper, right? Especially with deeds, like the paper is the thing. So all the processes are kind of built around like this is how the paper moves, and we're asking everybody to change that. So I understand the challenges there for sure. But it would be, the more that we can get through Simplifile, I think is gonna be is really gonna help streamline and alleviate a lot of work and time, particularly, when we are dealing with rejections. Which kind of brings me to my next item that I was gonna talk about, which is to the extent possible, and I understand you guys have all kinds of things you're doing and a queue that you're working from, but if we can get like, if we get like a full review with all rejection reasons like the first time, that's going to let us just go in there and fix it and get it back to you, and we both only have to look at it one more time, hopefully. And I know it's tough when we all have a million things to do, but we really do appreciate as much as possible if we can get multiple rejections. There is a way to list multiple on your side. I know you have to like check the boxes, but as much as we can get that with and just enumerated, it's going to let us get it back to you. So you only have to look at it one more time, not three more times. And ultimately that's, faster on both sides. So as much as we could get that, that would be really, really helpful. Because we just want to pay you your money and so that you can turn it over and move on to the next thing.
Also, you know,
mhm.
on the, you mentioned earlier about the codes, what to
Yes.
list the deed. Anytime we, and I believe the clerk's office is the same, we're consistent. We look for the entire complete code. So the more you spell it out, if you list the code completely and say husband and wife, the more information you have,
Right.
the better. It does make the process flow smoothly. We try to look over the whole entire deed once we get it to see if there's any other rejection reasons. So we're not continually going back and forth with them. So
yeah, we really appreciate that. Yeah, no, I mean, and like, I get it, right? Sometimes, you know, there's all kinds of scenarios, but that's really helpful. And yeah, one of the things I'm kind of just mentioning is different discrepancies between counties, not so much between like finance and the clerk's office within a single county. Another difference that we run into, and this may kind of be an overarching, is you know, when the purchase price is lower than the assessed value, different counties require different backup documentation, and then some not at all. So for instance, I think PG County has an affidavit. You know, for other counties, it's, you know, just we need some explanation. But if, you know, if there's any way to have some uniformity there, that would be helpful, because just like on our end, right? I may have a realtor who's listing a property in, you know, they've sold a property and say, I don't want to like pick on anyone, but they sold a property in one county, way less than assessed value, didn't have to do anything. Then they come to me and they're selling one in PG County that's less than the assessed value. And I'm like, I need your seller to do this affidavit. And then they're like, well, why do we have to do this? I've never had to do this before. This is crazy. Why do you want this from me? So to the extent that we can have more uniformity for those things, which there is obvious reasons why we need to explain if there's a valid reason that it's being sold for less than the assessed value, or if it's, you know, just kind of a sweetheart deal where we should really be collecting taxes based on the assessed value, not the contract purchase price. Because, you know, when I have to go back and say I need to collect taxes at this higher amount, well, number one, you know, all the buyer, the seller, they're all mad. Number two, the lender is mad at me because now their disclosures are all off, and why am I doing this? And, you know, why am I making their life terrible? So, again, the more that like I can have uniformity, that I can say, this is the requirement, you know, here, and here's, you know, the documentation that's provided by the county that needs to be filled out. It's a little bit more helpful, because for some reason, you know, otherwise it looks like I'm just trying to be difficult. So that's one thing where we have some different requirements. And then let's see what other questions that I have. Is there a, I know we talked about IDOTs. I've also gotten rejections in some places for construction loans that can't be submitted through Simplifile. Does anyone have any insight on that? Again, that may be like just a single jurisdiction. It was hard for me to identify. Okay. The other thing is, I have some jurisdictions that won't allow us to Simplifile if there's more than one deed of trust. And some do. So, and obviously we know it's doable in Simplifile. So is there any reason why it might not be allowable in a particular jurisdiction to have to submit, you know, a purchase with that it has two deeds of trust? Most of the time, right, it's because they've gotten some type of grant either through HUD or a local company, and that's why there's 2 deeds of trust to help them cover their closing costs. Okay, because that is definitely a nuance. In some jurisdiction, like I think there's only one that I'm aware of that won't allow for 2 to be submitted. Everywhere else does. So that's something that we see differences. Any other questions for me? That's pretty much all the examples that I thought would be worth highlighting.
Any questions from anyone for Abby or concerns? Okay, if there are none, Abby, thank you for coming on today. I think this was definitely informative to see the other side of it. With Simplifile, see what you guys are doing and to see what you guys see, and then maybe in talks we can try to develop something that's more uniform with everyone, so to prevent some of these rejections, or when there are rejections, you're looking at the same thing no matter what jurisdiction you're looking at, whether it's Charles or Frederick or Anne Arundel or Prince George's. Everything's the same no matter what you look at, because I know those are some of the obstacles that you guys face, as well as a lot of what we see too, because we always will get the answer, well, they allow this here, but why aren't you guys allowing it? So I think if we can come together on all of that, it would definitely help the process with everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Eric has my contact information, so I'm more than happy to answer any specific questions, even if it's just like, we put this in Simplifile to notify everybody. Can you tell me if you received it? Also, if you think that there's anyone on your staff that might benefit from seeing Simplifile from our side, we are more than happy to do, another Zoom or Teams meeting, and kind of go through that and answer any like specific questions. Again, we're really happy to help kind of make this an easier process on both sides, and we're not going to be offended if you say we're doing something wrong. We just want to do it better so that it's easier for you. So I think Madeline put both of our contact emails in the chat as well. So please, please reach out, happy to help or answer any questions or anything that might be useful.
Madeline, thank you for putting information in the chat. So I would get, like Abby just said, Abby's and Madeline's email address has been listed in the chat. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact them, or if you want to contact me, you can contact me and I can get in contact with Abby.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so that is pretty much it for today, guys. I mean, does anyone have anything they want to discuss? We have about 10 minutes.
Yes. I'm Justina from Howard County. I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask the group. It's this. Do you know if we are required to mail tax bills for like the second installment?
Frederick County does not mail bills for the second installment. We send one bill in July that has a coupon for the first installment and the annual amount, and also contains the coupon for the second installment.
Charles County does the same thing.
Same in Hartford.
Worcester County is the same as well.
Okay, so you don't send a second installment notices, you send out payment coupons for both?
Yes.
That is correct.
Installments.
This is Brian Shank from Anne Arundel County. We do send reminder bills out in November for the second installment, but this is built into our administrative fee that we assess on the second installment charge.
This is Larissa from Prince George's County. We also send a second installment bills for non-escrowed accounts, and we send a delinquent first installment bill in November.
Okay. Is there any consideration to change the law to not require tax bills to be mailed? Has that been brought up?
I mean, I think there's been some discussion before, but I think we do have to take it through legislation that if we could possibly email the tax bills, which would cut down on the cost significantly if we were able to do that, if people signed up for it.
I mean, you'd have to remember, you'd have to keep track and update those
Yeah,
email addresses. And I think
right.
most of our systems might not have the ability to maintain an email address.
hmm
I mean, in the past, when this came up, it was actually the fact that we had to send people the constant yield.
Right.
That we had is why we had to, why everybody sends a tax bill, because you had to send everybody the constant yield and you had to put that on the tax bill. I don't think it's come up recently. Do you, Eric? The last few years, I haven't heard.
No, it hasn't come up recently.
Yeah.
But I mean, now, well, I get only time we have to put the constant yield on now is if it changes. So, I mean, if there's a change with your tax rates and so forth. So, um, it's going to be a hard push maybe to do it to where we do not have to mail the tax bills out, even though we end up getting a lot of returned mail
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people haven't updated their addresses. Someone has they've moved, deceased, or whatever the matter is. Because we definitely get a bulk of return mail each year.
Same here. We do as well. Okay. I have one more question. Is there any interest in pursuing electronic notifications without mailing the tax bill? Has that come up?
Electronic notification of your tax bill.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think that has. I mean, like Diane was saying, that still has to do with the software that you have. If it gives you the capability to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because I think dealing with your younger generation, they probably
Mm-hmm.
would prefer to get an email or a text saying that your tax bill is ready. Please go online to pay,
Mm-hmm.
instead of receiving it in the mail.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
thank
Anne
you.
Arundel County has definitely explored the option of like a mass mailing approach to just send out the bills are available online or available will be mailed shortly. But this was more of an ad hoc thing that we were looking into. It just hasn't gone through yet. The appropriate people haven't really signed on. Plus, there's, as Eric said, there's kind of infrastructure in the background that every county was probably going to have to do, and that's definitely been the case for us to support potentially 200,000 email addresses for some kind of listserv that might go out to
Mm-hmm.
everybody.
Bob, have you heard anything about? Has there been any talk on the state level about us doing something like this?
I'm so sorry about doing something about what?
Uh, with tax bills, instead of mailing them out, or actually having the option of sending an email as well as mailing out a paper bill to the property owners.
Right. I have not heard anything about that. I think there's always the discussion about electronic communications versus mailed. And I think that at least for the time being, it's usually presented that there's a generation of taxpayers that are not going to get that electronic communication, that they're going to want to see that paper document. So I think people have said that further down the road that might be an option, but right now it's something we would need to continue to do. But I would add to that I do think there's an argument to say that there's also a reduction in people's willingness to open paper mail or to I think we often hear about people who they get the communication, written communication, and people are suspicious of it and they think that it's a scam because especially seniors are targeted very often, and that maybe there's an argument that electronic communication might be something more effective. But like I say, it's not. I don't think anyone's got an appetite to sort of phase out paper at this point. But I understand the administrative efficiency of it. It's like when someone says they didn't receive, we're required by statute to send out the reassessment notices by paper. If there's an issue with the post office or something like that, there's really no way we would know about that. Whereas if there's an electronic communication, there might be an ability to do a faster correction or or see that there's a bounce back if it was a wrong email address. So I do think there are benefits from the electronic transmission. Obviously, there's a cost savings, but my sense is that we're not at that place yet where people are ready to phase out paper.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is Christy Kelly from St. Mary's County. This is a trend across the nation that states are allowing taxpayers to sign up for an email notification for their taxes. And there is one jurisdiction in South Carolina that they actually had a raffle. If you signed up for it, you didn't have to pay your taxes that year just to get people signed up for the program.
They didn't have to pay their taxes all for the year?
Correct. It was an incentive program that that treasurer put into place with the permission of the jurisdiction. But yeah, just to try to get the ball rolling for people to sign up for the program.
Wow.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't think
I mean, we have, with business,
Yeah.
like with our business
We're already
division,
losing money with the veteran exemption. So.
I thought we were going to get past talking about that.
That's never going to end.
We have people, people can sign up for email notifications with like our business filers and things like that. So, I think there's a really good argument for saying if you want to get your communications electronically, sign up, and then you just gradually you get a better gauge of who still wants that paper application. You can really see that number. It could reduce your printing costs, and then you could also say like how many people out there still really want that paper notification. So yeah, sounds like
Bob, is there a way of sharing those lists with the counties that they affect, that email list?
So for businesses that file online, and I was talking about our business filers, the ones that file their formation and other documents online, they use an email address as their account login. I think that might be something we could do. Break it down by county. Yeah,
even if you just have a special location for a county official to be able to obtain those email addresses when necessary, because we have to track them down for payment or something. I would covet that list.
Okay, and just to confirm, this is just the business filers. It's not the property taxpayers, but it would be something to work with. Sure.
Only personal property accounts. Yes.
Okay. I will see what I can do about that.
Awesome.
The question I have.
And Christy, if you have the specific information about that other jurisdiction where you said that they had a lottery and all that stuff, if there's like a news article or something like that, if you could send that to me, that would be great. I'd love to share that around as an idea to see what kind of appetite there is for doing something like that for our taxpayers.
Okay, I'll look it up.
So what are you guys' turnaround time for veterans or actually anyone that's getting an exemption, as far as you guys getting the paperwork back to them and getting their refund back?
For Frederick, I guess from the point we get the adjustment from SDAT, it usually takes us about a week or two to get it on the account, and then I'd say an additional 3 to 4 weeks for a check to go out.
Okay, and that's after sending it to the state for their approval and getting it back?
Well, we don't send anything to the state.
Oh, you don't?
No, they apply for it through us.
Yeah, they apply through SDAT.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that's the full exemption. I'm not talking about like any credits that the county has here.
Right. Because I mean, our process is when we get the form back from SDAT, we actually send a letter to the homeowner, letting them know how much their refund is going to be, and then they sign it. Then it comes back through office for my signature, and then we also get the state to sign off on their side. And then once we get that back from the state, then we issue the refund to the customer. So our process probably takes like 8 weeks.
Yeah, no, we just get the adjustment form from the state and from SSTAT, and we put it on there. We don't reach out to the homeowner or have anything signed. It's the state giving it. I don't see why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same for Prince George's County. When the adjustment comes through our system, it automatically generates a refund card for us, and they'll get their refund in about 4 to 6 weeks. So yeah, we don't send any paperwork to the homeowner or anything like that either. They get the letter from the state, and I think the letter from the state says that they, will process their refund in whatever 2 to 4 to 6 weeks. So.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same for Worcester County too. We try to get them always out within 30 days from receiving it from SSTAT. We get the form. We have 30 days was always our impression to get that refund out. So we process it as quickly as we can. Occasionally we'll have a munis issue and then we're done with it.
Same for Howard County, but most of the time the veteran has already been notified, like some others said, by the state. So they are notifying us again, but we get that file and we process the file from the state, the whole file from the state within 30 days. And as soon as we process them, we sending out the refunds.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, well, if there were no other questions or concerns, anything anyone wants to bring up, I thank you guys for attending today. This will be our last meeting until January. So I wish everyone a happy holiday season. Be safe, eat a lot of food, and enjoy your families and friends.
Thank you. You too.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you
You
guys.
too.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.